1885, British Columbia, Canada. The virgin forest here has magnificent mountains, and rivers and lush vegetation. A little bear was playing on the rocks, and the mother bear was digging for honey in the tree hole. Although it was stung and scratched its feet and head, its sweet instinct made it can't to stop. After a lot of effort, she finally got the honey, and mother bear started chewing it. It licked the bear's mouth with its tongue, and fed it sweet honey. Then, the mother bear continued to dig holes in the tree. At this time, the rocks on the mountain became loose, and a huge boulder suddenly rolled down and hit the mother bear. The mother bear howled and then became silent. The little bear wanted to move the stone away, but his body was too weak. It tried for a long time but to no avail. It rubbed against the mother's body, but there was no reaction from the mother. It snuggled up next to its mother, panting and whimpering. At night, the crescent moon rises from the other side of the mountain. The little bear looked at the moon from a distance, still staying by its mother's side. After daybreak, the little bear accidentally rolled down the hillside. Without the protection of its mother, it can only wander in the jungle. When the little bear saw the frog, it was very curious and jumped after it. The frog jumped into the water, and the little bear also fell into the ditch. It was afraid of the water and ran ashore quickly, shaking off the water drops on its body. At night again, the little bear could only sleep alone on the cliff. Without its mother, it fell into boundless fear. At this time, in the vast darkness, a bonfire rose deep in the dense forest. Sitting around the campfire were a father and son, a pair of hunters. The father was skinning a bear and throwing the grease from under the skin into the campfire. Son Tom is aligning his shotgun against the moon. The next day, the red sun rose, and the little bear ran and played among the flowers. Mountain flowers are blooming and birds are chirping. The little bear was rolling on the rocks. At this time, two hunters had set out on the other side of the mountain. They found huge footprints left by a male brown bear. They estimated the guy to be at least 1,500 pounds. Judging from the temperature of the feces, it had just left here not long ago. And the big bear was eating wild mushrooms in the forest. After eating, it sat under a big tree to rest. A pine cone fell and hit it on the head, startling it. When the squirrel saw it, it was so frightened that it ran away. There is no doubt that it is the king of this jungle, and any creature must avoid it if it sees it, except for hunters of course. When it was scratching on the tree, the hunter had spotted its traces through binoculars. They tied up their horses, took their shotguns and gave chase. Tom spotted the bear and approached quietly while hiding in the bushes. The big bear was enjoying the red berries, unaware of the danger. Tom raised his shotgun and aimed at it. After a sharp gunshot, the skin on the big bear's front legs suddenly burst open, and blood gushed out. The frightened bear roared and ran away quickly. Hearing the gunshot, his father ran over and blamed Tom for shooting too hastily. The distance was too far to cause fatal damage to the bear. Tom was reluctant and looked around through the telescope. Suddenly, the sound of horses neighing was heard in the distance. The father and son suddenly realized something was wrong, and ran back quickly. After running back to the campsite, there was blood everywhere. The injured and furious bear had disemboweled their horse, and the other horse was also seriously injured, and hid in a rock crevice in fear. When Tom went to hold it, he was knocked down on a pile of rocks. He broke his leg and limped back to the campsite. The injured bear caused them heavy losses. Tom looked depressed and his father was filled with anger. He roared deep into the forest, "I will definitely kill you." At this time, the injured bear was running desperately, panting heavily, and half of its body was stained red with blood. Due to the unbearable pain in his left leg, he could only walk on 3 legs. The little bear playing on the hillside saw it from a distance. The little bear quickly ran towards it, and stopped not far from it. The little bear stood up and wanted to follow it, but the injured bear was very grumpy, and kept waving its claws at it. After the big bear left, the little bear could only follow it from a distance. Finally, the exhausted bear lay in the ditch, and let out a low roar of pain. At this time, the little bear emerged from the bushes and approached it quietly, but it was still full of hostility and kept roaring. After several trials, the little bear gently walked behind it, and helped it lick its wounds. Bear saliva contains antibacterial components that can control infections. Feeling the comfort, Big Bear gradually calmed down. It gently licked the bear's head. In this way they reached a tacit understanding. The hunter was only thinking about revenge and venting his anger, and his father was preparing to go back to bring in reinforcements. He asked his son to wait for his return at the campsite. A few days later, the moon began to slowly become rounder, and the big bear's injury slowly healed. Although the male bear did not have the instinct to take care of babies, he still took in the cubs. When they came to a shoal, the big bear worked hard to catch plump salmon. After throwing 3 fish to the little bear in a row, He began to enjoy the delicious food. The next day, a herd of elk rushed down the hillside, and the big bear and the little bear hid behind the rocks. It wants to teach the little bear to hunt, which is a required lesson for it to survive. The big bear lay on the ground and crawled forward, and the little bear also imitated its crawling behavior. When the distance was close enough, the big bear launched a sudden attack. With a slap, the elk stopped moving. After successfully hunting, they enjoyed another delicious meal. After eating, the two bears snuggled together and fell asleep. The insects all around were buzzing, just like the bees buzzing that day. The little bear dreamed of his mother being smashed to death, and his eyes were full of horror. At this time, Tom was sitting by the river waiting for his father. He cut the warhead into a petal shape to greatly increase the lethality. He shot at the tree trunk, and a big hole was made. A smug smile crossed Tom's face. The big bear and the little bear travel through the jungle. Suddenly, they encountered a female bear. The big bear smelled the scent of the female bear and heat in the air. The female bear stood up, waved to it, and showed an ambiguous smile. Then it lay on the ground and acted cute, sending a courtship message to the male bear, and the male bear pushed down the thick pine tree to show it the strength of the male. After the little bear saw it, it imitated it and started playing with the pine tree. The big bear's wonderful performance won the heart of the female bear. The female bear shook her head and signaled the male bear to follow her to the room. When the little bear caught up, two big bears were having fun in the forest. The little bear felt bored. It just ran to the side to play alone. It saw the colorful wild mushrooms and ate them. Not long after, it started to feel dizzy, and then fainted on all fours. In a daze, it seemed to see colorful mushrooms flying in the sky, and finally turned into colorful butterflies. It didn't know how long it took, but a heavy rain woke it up. It regained consciousness, quickly turned over and climbed up to chase the big bear. At this time, the two big bears were sleeping together contentedly. The little bear found them, and slept not far away. The next day, with the melodious chirping of birds, the big bear took the little bear and left. After the male bear finished eating, he wiped his mouth and left, leaving the task of giving birth to the female bear. Oh, what a scumbag! At this time, Tom's uncle arrived, along with a boatload of hounds. The leading poodle couldn't wait to jump into the water, and rushed to his owner's side. His father also rode along the river bank. They were sure to kill the big bear. The father and son followed the footprints and tracked the bear. At this time, the big bear was drinking water by the river. Suddenly, a dog barked in the distance. The big bear stood up and observed the surrounding situation vigilantly. The little bear also stood up, and learned this survival skill seriously. The big bear smelled danger, and ran up the mountain with the little bear. The big bear climbed over, but the little bear was too weak and got stuck on the cliff. The bear watched anxiously until it climbed up. The two bears stood on the hill overlooking the mountain, and the danger was approaching step by step. The dogs barked louder and louder, and they could only run away. Soon the dogs climbed up the hill and ran towards them. The big bear struggled to climb up the steep slope, but the little bear couldn't climb up. It let out a cry of terror, and the big bear, who had already walked away, stopped, turned around and ran towards the little bear. The frightened bear hid in the cave, while the hounds were climbing up the steep slope one after another. In order to protect the little bear, the big bear blocked the cave. After the hounds rushed up, they all rushed to bite the big bear, and the big bear started a life and death struggle with them. It waved its huge paws and drove the two hounds towards the cliff. The little bear was already whining in fear and its little feet were shaking. The big bear was chased by the hounds to the hill. The hunter wanted to shoot, but the range was too far, and he was not sure at all. By the time they caught up, both bear and hound had disappeared over the pass, and Tom's pet dog had fallen under the cliff and was dying. In order to relieve its pain, Tom's uncle shot it, and Tom showed a sad expression. The uncle patted his shoulder to comfort him. The frightened little bear crawled out of the cave, and was discovered by Tom and his uncle. The uncle rushed forward with his coat, and caught the little bear. They tied the little bear to the tree with a long and thin rope. The little bear looked very cute, and Tom couldn't help but play with it. Dog barks came one after another in the distance. When the little bear heard it, it was so frightened that it quickly climbed up the tree. The hounds that chased the big bear all came back with their tails between their legs, each with wounds worse than the last. Under the hunter's order, the hounds slowly quieted down, and the big bear who had returned was wandering around the campsite. It saw the little bear hiding in the tree from a distance. Late at night, the hunter fell asleep, holding his gun. The jungle finally became quiet. The little bear hiding in the tree climbed down tremblingly. It wanted to escape, but was firmly tied by the rope. Looking at the bearskin in front of it, it thought it was a sleeping bear. It struggled to free itself from the rope, and then began to bite with its mouth. The next day, the uncle found that the rope had been bitten off and the little bear had disappeared. After seeing this, Tom shook his head and expressed his helplessness. But then he found the little bear, sleeping peacefully next to the bear skin. Tom stretched out his hand to scratch the soles of its feet, but it still slept soundly. Tom poured a plate of milk to tease it. After smelling the sweet fragrance, it woke up immediately. It stuck out its tongue and licked the milk greedily, and Tom kept teasing it. The little bear is not afraid of people at all, and even stands up and acts cute and coquettish. Tom was amused, and his uncle laughed happily, but they didn't realize that the big bear was hiding in the jungle and staring at them. After they tied the little bear with a leash, they prepared to hunt the big bear. The father and uncle were lying in ambush on both sides of the road, waiting for the big bear to surrender, but their every move was clearly seen by the big bear standing on the mountain. Tom climbed up the cliff and observed the surrounding situation with a telescope. At noon, the scorching sun was in the sky. Tom gradually felt his mouth go dry, so he picked up the kettle and went to a spring on the cliff to fill it with water. While he was squatting by the spring to wash his face, Tom suddenly felt a chill on his back. When he turned around, he saw the big bear blocking the cliff path, looking extremely irritable. It waved its huge claws and kept roaring in demonstration. Tom didn't have a gun in his hand, so he could only huddle on the edge of the cliff and tremble. There is a cliff next to him. If he jumps off, there is only one way to die, but the only way to escape was blocked by the big bear, whose claws were like scimitars and could tear people to pieces in an instant. Tom's legs were weak with fear, and he cried and begged. Seeing his helpless look, Big Bear hesitated for a moment, then turned and left. It took Tom a long time to come to his senses. Out of the hunter's instinct, he hurried back to get his gun, and then caught up with the big bear. He picked up the gun and aimed at it, but he couldn't pull the trigger. He fired a shot into the sky, hoping to drive the bear away and perhaps save its life. After the uncle heard the noise, he chased after him. When he saw the big bear, he immediately picked up his shotgun and prepared to shoot, but Tom pressed the head of his gun. Although he didn't understand why Tom did this, he respected Tom's choice. He knew that Tom must have a story hidden in his heart. Early the next morning, the three hunters packed their things and prepared to go home. Tom untied the little bear's belt and gently touched its head. The little bear was free again. Tom couldn't help but glance back at it. When they walked out of a dense forest, the little bear chased them from a distance. Tom turned the horse's head and drove the little bear back. That is its home. He waved his hand and wished the little bear good luck. The little bear chased out and waved his paws at them, whimpering as if to say goodbye to them. Now he is a lonely little bear again. This jungle is full of dangers, and without protection, it will be difficult for the little bear to survive. Soon, a puma spotted it and quickly charged towards it. When the little bear realized the danger, it ran away and finally climbed into a dead tree. The puma was pressing closer. At this time, the dead branch suddenly broke, and the little bear fell into the water. It climbed onto a broken branch, and the puma chased it along the river bank. Then it jumped onto a rock in the middle of the river, and waited for the cub to arrive. Seeing this, the little bear jumped off the dead branch, and swam desperately to the shore. When it climbed ashore, the puma attacked it, and its sharp claws instantly scratched the little bear until it was bleeding. The little bear howled loudly. The sound was sharp and sharp. Just when it was about to succeed, the puma suddenly turned around and ran away because there was a big guy standing behind the little bear that it couldn't afford to offend. The big bear is coming. It stood up and roared angrily. The little bear saw the big bear and ran to it. The big bear gently helped it lick its wounds, like a loving father. When snowflakes fell on this primitive and mysterious land, the big bear and the little bear hid in the cave to hibernate. They snuggled together peacefully and fell asleep. This winter, if you have a mother, you won't feel cold. The Bear is a work directed by Jean-Jacques Annaud and released in 1988. The movie is adapted from the true story of the relationship between man and bear that took place in the Rocky Mountains of the United States in 1885. The most surprising thing about the whole movie is the superb acting skills of the animals. Every move they make seems to have the shadow of humans. For a moment, I even thought that they might be the other side of humans, but they don't have those complex desires of humans. In this movie, the director gave the bear human emotions. Watching the little bear chase frogs and butterflies, roll in the flowers and wave goodbye to humans, you will find that it is like an inexperienced child, smart and naughty, cute and sensible. The little bear who lost its mother felt as if it had been abandoned by the world. After a helpless search, it discovered the large male bear. The way they establish feelings, or friendship, is so simple and direct. You lick my wounds, and I provide you with shelter. Isn't this the most essential thing about friendship and affection? Perhaps without the complicated utilitarianism of human beings, friendship can be so pure. As a higher animal, is it because humans are complex by nature, or is it because we have become complicated due to the influence of this society? Almost all animals in nature must follow the laws of nature, except humans. It seems that human beings have broken away from nature in the animistic world. Speaking of this, I suddenly remembered a sentence. Nature has always been natural, and what is unnatural is us humans. This is HKY Movies, looking forward to meeting you in the next movie.